What's up guys, there's Cousin here. Welcome back to another devlog of Alden Idol, and this one is very special because I want to talk about how I essentially built a multiplayer online game that you can pretty much play without having any internet connection at all. So let me demonstrate that to you. So here I'm on the mining screen of Alden Idol. So I can come here, I can start any mining. I can start mining copper ore, for example, and then I'm going to open up here my developer tools in my browser because I am running this in Chrome right now. And here I can essentially simulate being offline. So I can toggle this offline here. I can close this. And now you're going to see that I have no internet connection and the game is still working. I'm still getting progress over here. I'm still getting all of my rewards. I can open up the stats here. I'm still seeing my XP go up here and everything works without having an internet connection, which is really cool considering that the foundation of this game here is basically online. And this is really cool because it fits exactly what I want out of this game. So I want to build this game both as an MMO that you can have an online component to it, but also as a single player experience if you don't want to interact with any of the online stuff. And I did that. What you're seeing here is basically the game running offline completely. You can let this run for however long you want, and basically you're getting the rewards until you come back the next time and you can see how many rewards you actually got. So now let me actually show you how I came up with this because the solution is very clever and it's actually very simple. Now, the first thing that you have to understand is when you're making a game, typically you kind of have to make a decision as to whether you want to have a single player game or if you want to have a multiplayer game. And this decision is important because it essentially makes the foundation of what your game is and how players are essentially going to play it. And each side has pros and cons, right? Like a single player game is usually going to be very fast and responsive because everything essentially happens on the device that the user is playing the game. You don't have to talk to any server, so everything is going to happen pretty much instantly. It also works anywhere because you don't need an internet connection. You can be anywhere, you can play this, and a lot of single players have this benefit, right? Because they don't have to talk to any servers. But one of the drawbacks is that it can be cheated, right? Because everything happens on the device. If you're savvy enough, you can actually open up the game, you can change some values, and you can basically cheat to give yourself infinite gold, right? And then all of these tiers over here that you can basically abuse. When it comes to multiplayer, well, that also has pros and cons, right? For example, it is slow, right? Because everything has to talk to a central server. It's going to be slow. There's going to be a ping, right? And depending on your internet connection, you will have a better or a worse experience. It also, of course, requires a network connection, and you can't play this if you don't have signal or if you're anywhere that you're remote. But on the plus side, you can't really cheat inside of a multiplayer game, typically because the server is going to be the source of truth, and you can't really change something on the server unless you hack the server, but that usually doesn't happen. Right, so that's usually how games typically have to go, right? You kind of have to make a decision. And a lot of games give you kind of both. You can have single player mode and then you can have multiplayer. And I kind of wanted to do something like that. I essentially wanted everything to be fast and responsive. I wanted it to be able to work anywhere, but I did not want it to be cheated. And because I did not want it to be cheated, I had to also include this multiplayer component. But I kind of found a way to have the best of both worlds where some things you do are multiplayer and then the rest kind of falls into the single player here. So for example, going back here to the game over here, the only online requirement for Alden Idol is that you be online and have internet connection when you start or when you stop an activity. Whether it's mining, whether it's combat, whether it's whatever, you have to be online when you press this button. As soon as you've pressed the button and as soon as things are just running, you can now leave this, you can lose your connection, you can even close the entire game and play something else or come back to it later on, close your computer, and everything is still going to work automatically without you having to do anything else regarding online. So now let me actually show you how I achieved this because once again, it's a really clever solution. It's very simple and I think that it's super powerful because it enables me to pretty much do anything that I want with this game. So here I have a diagram that I was basically sketching out when I was thinking of how I can actually achieve this in a smart way. And this is how this works. So essentially you have the server here. This is your source of truth. So all of the data for all of the players, your level, your gold, your XP, all of that is always stored on the server. And whenever you, a client, right, a player, you open up either your phone, your desktop, your web browser, because you can play this game pretty much in all of those places, every time that you do that, you're basically going to get the data from the server as opposed to who you are, what player you are, what level you are, your gold, your items, and so on. So the source of truth here lives on the server, which means that everybody has access to that same source of truth. So you can basically enable online and multiplayer features. And then all of these clients here, whenever they want to do something, for example, they want to start mining, all that they have to do is just send a message to the server, which is what happens when you press that button here. When you stop or start, you're sending a message to the server, and you're simply telling the server, hey, I want to start an activity. In this case, it's mining, and I want to mine copper ore. The server is going to receive that, which means that you need to be online just for this part. And then here comes the clever part. It is going to give you here a success message and a seed as well. This seed is basically a random string, right? Some text, some numbers generated from the server that basically allows you to do something called deterministic randomness. This is something that if you've ever played Minecraft, you know exactly what this is because you've used it, right? In Minecraft, whenever you create a world, the world is always going to be random, right? But if you provide a seed, you can always get that same random world because the randomness is based on the seed. Well, in this case, it's exactly the same thing here. The seed here is used to basically have deterministic randomness on both the server and the client. Right, so going back to the client here, every single time that you have any action happen, like this progress bar here, there's a lot of random checks that go on, right? RNG. Basically, we're going to roll how much damage you actually do, right? In this case, I'm always going to hit 2 because I'm just that strong with level 96 strength. But also, every single time that we defeat the rat, we're also getting rewards here, right? From the loot table based on percentages. All of these are RNG checks. And essentially, how can you actually make sure that you're running the same RNG on the client, which should support it being offline, but also on the server, which is all online? And you do that with a seed, right? Because the server has the seed, the server is the one who generates the seed, the source of truth. It gives that seed back to the client. And then the client from this moment on does no longer need to be online at all, no longer needs to talk to the server at all, because it can use the seed to basically simulate everything that would happen if it was running on the server without actually running it on the server because it's the same seed. And so basically the client here, every single tick, which now is actually 100 milliseconds instead of 1 second, basically just simulates everything locally with the seed over here. So how much damage you're doing, what items you're getting, how many monsters you killed, all of that is being simulated on the client just as if it was a single player game. It doesn't talk to the server at all. Then in the background, every larger interval, so let's say 30 seconds, which it's currently at, but I might change this to a little bit later, you can run a catch up to actually sync this back to the server from the client so that the server can also have the same data as the client. But this is actually not needed because if you think about it, if you have the seed here and you have the current timestamp, so what time is it currently, you can essentially play back any amount of ticks that you want because you know when was the last time that you needed to sync, you know how many ticks that is until now, and you have the seed, so you can roll as many RNGs as you need in the same way as if they had run on the client or on the server. It doesn't really matter. And so now you have a system where the client can basically run its own game, simulate everything. Another client can connect here, get the same seed from the server as well, right? It's going to be the same seed, and then run all those simulations again. They're going to produce the same exact results as this client here. And then whenever you want to run these on the server, so they can actually be synced on the source of truth for all players, you can essentially run it here, sync it, and the server using the seed is basically going to catch up once again. And that's it. That's what happens, right? So now this has been running on the client. There's no connection to the server. I can even close this because technically nothing needs to be run, right? It's all simulated. It's all fake. It's all an illusion. And then when I stop this, I have it so that it syncs when I stop this. That's why you need an internet connection. When I stop this, the server says, great, you stopped the activity. Let me play back all of the RNG. Let me play back everything that you got and actually give you the rewards. But again, these rewards have already been simulated on the client. And this works for combat. This works for mining. This works for pretty much anything. And that's how you're able to get an online game, a multiplayer game, that you can play without having any internet connection for pretty much as long as you want to play it. And once again, I think that this is really cool because it really fits into what I want out of this game, right? I want all the benefits of having everything run as a single player. I want you to not necessarily even have to interact with all of the online stuff if you don't want, in terms of the global market, the leaderboards and all that. It's completely optional. You still need an internet connection, first of all, to just make an account. You'll need an account for this. You'll be able to play as a guest as well, but you'll need to have some sort of account and then to start your things. But after that, go nuts, go on Mount Everest, go on a plane, do whatever you want. You will not need to have an internet connection to be able to play Alden Idol. Everything is going to be simulated on the client every single time that you play on any device, no matter what you are. And then at some point, we're going to sync back to server, and the server is going to have your source of truth so that if you want to do anything online or if you want to appear in the leaderboards, you're going to be able to appear with the same data that was simulated on the actual clients. So there you go. That's how I built an online game that you can play without actually being online. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this solution. I think it's very clever, but I'm open to ideas. And yeah, that's it for this devlog. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.